With a career spanning decades, few individuals have influenced the Cherokee Nation like Principal Chief John Ross. In this Cherokee Almanac, we take a look at the final year of his life and observe the adversity he faced and the perseverance he displayed to the very end. Throughout the destructive period of the U.S. Civil War and early Reconstruction, Principal Chief John Ross strove to maintain the strength and unity of the Cherokee Nation. Chief Ross's work in these few years would go on to affect the future of the Cherokee Nation for decades. Little did he know, this period would also mark the final chapter of his life.
You know, the American Civil War in Indian Territory had its largest toll in Cherokee Nation. The countryside really kind of basically vacated, and you know, there was hardly a house left standing. Businesses were destroyed, livestock was taken, crops were destroyed.
Despite the Cherokee Nation's sovereignty from the United States, we remained caught in the middle of the conflict, pressured to choose a side.
John Ross's loyalties were with the Cherokee Nation. He wasn't interested in joining the Civil War at all. He really wanted the Cherokee Nation to maintain its neutrality.
However, Confederate sentiment was growing within the Cherokee Nation. Many prominent Cherokees were pushing for a treaty with the South, including one of Ross's greatest political rivals, Stand Watie.
Stand Watie had decided, on his own that he would voluntarily build a regiment for the Confederacy, of Cherokee troops. Ross didn't have much of a hand to play after that. If he wanted to keep the nation together, he kind of had to sign that treaty with the Confederacy.
While the treaty with the South was an attempt to maintain unity, behind the scenes, Cherokee politics had fractured. Ross and his followers sympathized with the Union, while the Watie faction sided with the South. Foreseeing the war ending in Union victory, Ross and his Northern Cherokee delegation traveled to Washington, D.C. to begin negotiating a post-war treaty with the United States.
Ross had made it clear that there were Cherokees that were participating with the Federal Army, with the federal cause, and that their intentions were fully with the Union at that point.
Back in the Cherokee Nation, the Watie faction capitalized on Ross's absence by manifesting a separate government, with Watie as their principal chief. Watie even went as far as to ransack Ross's home, Rose Cottage, attacking Ross's daughter and killing her husband before burning the cottage to the ground.
These two groups had really had differences, all the way back, to the late 1820s, early 1830s. These are old wounds that go all the way back to the removal and the signing of the Treaty of New Echota.
Even with the Civil War ending in Confederacy defeat, the Watie faction continued to work against Ross, arguing their Southern delegation should be the voice of the Cherokee Nation in U.S. treaty negotiations. Watie's Southern delegates found an ally in Dennis N. Cooley, the U.S. Commissioner of Indian Affairs.
He's one of those who kind of recognizes that these divisions can be exploited. Undermining Ross is going to actually be more useful to the federal government. Cooley recognizes that and kind of writes about these issues and really works to undermine Ross.
Cooley published The Cherokee Question, distorting Ross's political dealings to depict him as an enemy of the United States. While battling the efforts of Watie and Cooley, Ross faced even more hardship in his personal life. His wife, Mary Stapler Ross, fell gravely ill and passed away, and Ross's own health was beginning to fail as well. Meanwhile, the Cherokee Question proved effective, and Cooley presented a treaty with the Southern Cherokee delegation to the Johnson administration. In the final hour, the Northern Cherokee delegation brought forth documents supporting Ross's loyalty to the U.S., documents that had been withheld by Cooley. All treaty conditions proposed by Cooley and the Southern Cherokees were abandoned, and Ross's Northern delegation negotiated a new treaty, signed on July 19, 1866. Ross's efforts proved victorious. However, he would never see the fruits of his labor. On August 1, 1866, John Ross passed away, ending a 38-year-long career as Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation.
So he's sick and bedridden and still seeing this treaty to the end. Ross is making sure that the nation is renewed and maintained and is not broken up through this moment, that he sees this through and then immediately passes away. There's something powerful about that.
Over the course of his career, Chief Ross led our people through great upheavals, forced removal, the Civil War, times of immense difficulty and loss. Even with his health failing, he never lost sight of his goal for a strong, unified Cherokee Nation.